Hello. Tish'a B'Av is the saddest day on the Jewish calendar. History is full of catastrophic events that befell Jews on that day. Their timing may have been accidental or intentional. In particular, the first and second temples were both destroyed on that day. We mourn them every year on that day. This is how this mourn is conducted. In the 3 weeks leading up to Tish'a B'Av, we must not play or listen to music, conduct weddings, shave or cut our hair, or wear new clothes. In the 9 days prior, we must not eat meat, drink wine, or wear fresh clothes. On the day itself, we must fast all day. Before the fast, we must eat hard-boiled eggs and simulated ashes. We must not wash, apply lotions, wear leather shoes, have sex, or even greet one another. We must sit on the floor or on low stools and read the book of Lamentations under dim lights. We must refrain from learning or discussing anything that is not said. It is fair to ask the question, why must we mark Tish'a B'Av in this manner? Why should we mourn so intensely all the terrible things that have happened to us in history, even millennia ago? After all, Pessah, Hanukkah, and Purim are celebrated as joyous holidays, even though they recall times when we endured slavery, religious coercion, and a collective death sentence. So why shouldn't Tish'a B'Av be a joyous time as well? One can argue that Pessah, Hanukkah, and Purim are celebrated as joyous holidays because we won. We went from slavery to physical freedom, from religious coercion to religious freedom, and from a death sentence to a reprieve. But Tish'a B'Av commemorates events when we did not win. First, the destroyed temple was not rebuilt. Yes, but we can say that a modern Judaism anchored in ethical behavior, study, and services emerged and flourished in many lands. Second, the 6 million dead of the Holocaust will not come back. Yes, but we can say that neither will those who died in the events of Pessah, Hanukkah, and Purim. Furthermore, the State of Israel was born from the ashes of the Holocaust, and a Jewish Renaissance ensued. Third, the expulsion from Spain was never undone. Yes, but we can say that it led to the spread of Jewish culture and to Jewish achievements elsewhere. For example, I'm glad I was forced out of Egypt, where I was born and raised. The point is, Judaism survived and flourished in all cases. Isn't that cause for celebration? Of course, we must remind non-Jews of what happened to us. But how intensely must we remember it ourselves? Can't it be paralyzing? Let's examine this question. First of all, we Jews remember. 2 anecdotes will illustrate this point. First, at a formal dinner in Washington in May 1952, the Israeli ambassador Abba Eban told President Truman, quote, "We do not have orders or decorations. Our material strength is small and greatly strained. We have no tradition of formality or chivalry. One thing, however, is within the power of Israel to confer. It is the gift of immortality. Those whose names are bound up with Israel's history never become forgotten. We are therefore now writing the name of President Truman upon the map of our country." Unquote. Eban later recalls, quote, "As I left the rostrum, I saw the tough-minded president burying his face in a handkerchief without any effort to restrain his emotion. The next day he sent me a letter asking me for a text of my address. You spoke so flatteringly about me that for a moment I had the impression that I was dead." Second, when Napoleon was traveling through Europe, he entered a synagogue where people were weeping, sitting on low stools, holding candles, and reading from books. He asked an aide why these people were weeping. He was told they fasted and mourned the destruction of their temple and the loss of their lands. Napoleon asked how many years they had been doing this, and was told it was almost 2,000 years. He then exclaimed, "A nation that cries and fasts for so long over the loss of their land and their temple will surely be rewarded with their lands and their temple." Memory allowed us to last. Judaism itself is founded on the collective memory of the revelation at Sinai. The Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidism, taught forgetfulness leads to exile, while remembrance is the secret of redemption. Visitors to Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem, see these words on their way out. The Torah commands us to remember a lot of things, happy and sad. Let us review where the injunction to remember, Zachor, appears. We must remember slavery, a sad event. The Torah says, remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt. We must remember the Exodus, a happy event. The Torah says, remember the day when you went out of the land of Egypt all the days of your life. We must remember the revelation at Sinai, a happy event. The Torah says, but beware and watch yourself very well, lest you forget the things that your eyes saw, and lest these things depart from your hearts all the days of your life. And you shall make them known to your children and to your children's children, the day you stood before the Lord your God at Horeb. We must remember Amalek, a sad event. The Torah says, you shall remember what Amalek did to you on the way when you went out of Egypt, when you were faint and weary. You shall obliterate the remembrance of Amalek from beneath the heavens. You shall not forget. We must remember our rebellion in the desert, a sad event. The Torah says, remember, do not forget how you angered the Lord your God in the desert. From the day that you went out of the land of Egypt until you came to this place, you have been rebelling against the Lord. We must remember Miriam bad-mouthing Moses and her punishment, a sad event. The Torah says, remember what the Lord your God did to Miriam on the way when you went out of Egypt. We must remember Shabbat, a happy event. The Torah says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. But the Torah does not spell out the manner in which we must remember. Should the mood be gloomy or festive? Is it the rabbis who are forcing us to mourn? No, that's what the people want, sometimes over the objections of the rabbis. The book of Esther says about the fast days, quote, the Jews decreed for themselves and for their seeds the matter of fasting and lamenting. The rabbis had to convince the people to mourn less. The Talmud testifies to that. Quote, our rabbis taught, when the second temple was destroyed, large numbers in Israel became ascetics, binding themselves not to eat meat or drink wine. Rabbi Yehoshua asked them, my sons, why do you not eat meat or drink wine? They replied, shall we eat flesh which used to be brought as an offering to the altar, now that this altar is in abeyance? Shall we drink wine which used to be poured as a libation on the altar, but now no longer? He said to them, if that is so, we should not eat bread either, because the meal offerings have ceased. They said, that is so, and we can manage with fruit alone. He said, we should not eat fruit either, because there is no longer an offering of first fruits. They said, then we can manage with other fruits. He said, but we should not drink water, because there is no longer the ceremony of the pouring of water, Simchat Bet HaShoeva, which used to be performed on Sukkot when the temple was standing. To this they could find no answer. So he said to them, my sons, come and listen to me. Not to mourn at all is impossible, because the blow has fallen. To mourn too much is also impossible, because we do not impose on the community a hardship which the majority cannot endure. The sages therefore have ruled as follows. A man may paint his house, but he should leave a small area bare. A man may prepare a full-course banquet, but he should leave out an item or two. A woman may put on all her ornaments, but leave off one or two. Unquote. In other words, go on with your life, but create small reminders here and there. You might think that mourning should stop when the consequences of what is being mourned have been erased. If so, they should have stopped mourning and fasting on Tish'a B'Av during the Second Temple period, which lasted 586 years, since the temple had been rebuilt. But they didn't. They kept right on fasting. Why? Because that is what the people wanted. Here's the story. 4 fast days commemorate the destruction of the First Temple. First, the 10th of Tevet, commemorating the siege of Jerusalem by Babylon, culminating in the conquest of Judah. Second, Tish'a B'Av, when the first temple was actually destroyed. Third, the fast of Gedaliah, commemorating the assassination of the righteous governor of Judah, which ended Jewish autonomy after the destruction of the first temple. And fourth, the 17th of Tammuz, commemorating the breach of the walls of Jerusalem, which led to the destruction of the temple. It was the 9th of Tammuz for the first temple, but it was later changed to the 17th for the second temple. After the Jews returned to Jerusalem and rebuilt the temple, they wondered, should we continue to mourn or not? With independence regained and the temple rebuilt, should we still weep or should we be glad? The prophet Zechariah said to be glad, but the people refused. Quotes from the book of Zechariah. People were asking, should I weep, separating myself as I have done for the 70 years of exile in Babylon? Unquote. The Lord of hosts said as follows, the 4 fast days shall become to the house of Judah days of joy and gladness and cheerful feasts. Unquote. God said to rejoice on Tish'a B'Av. So why didn't we? The Talmud answers, quote, Rabbi Hanna ben Bizna had said in the name of Rabbi Shimon HaTzadik, what is the meaning of that verse? Rav Papa replied, what it means is this, when there is peace, these days shall be days of joy and gladness. When there is persecution, there shall be fast days. When there is no persecution but yet not peace, then those who desire to fast may fast, and those who do not desire to fast need not fast. They asked, if that is the case, should the fast of Tish'a B'Av be also optional? Rav Papa replied, Tish'a B'Av is in a different category because several misfortunes happened on it. Unquote. However, some rabbis had different opinions. Quote, Rabbi Elazar said in the name of Rabbi Hanina, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi planted something on Purim, which was not allowed back then, and bathed in the bathhouse of the marketplace of Sephoris on the 17th of Tammuz, a fast day, and even sought to abolish the fast of Tish'a B'Av, but his colleagues would not agree. Rabbi Abba ben Zabda ventured to remark, Rabbi, that was not the case. What happened was that Tish'a B'Av on that year fell on Shabbat, and the rabbis postponed it till right after Shabbat, and he said to them, since it has been postponed, let it be postponed altogether until next year. But the sages would not agree. Rabbi Elazar then said, I stand corrected. The great Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi, the compiler of the Mishnah, was in favor of less mourning. Also, quote, long ago, Ramban Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Yehoshua, and Rabbi Akiva were coming up to Jerusalem together. And just as they came to Mount Scopus, they saw a fox emerging from the Holy of Holies. They fell weeping, except Rabbi Akiva, who laughed. They said to him, why are you laughing? He said, why are you weeping? They said to him, a holy place has now become the haunt of foxes, and we should not weep? He said to them, here's why I'm laughing. The prophecy of Micah says, because of you, Zion shall be plowed like a field, and Jerusalem shall become heaps of rubble. But later the prophecy of Zechariah says, thus says the Lord of hosts, old men and old women shall again dwell in the streets of Jerusalem, and every man with his staff in his hand for the fullness of days. And the city shall be full of boys and girls playing in the streets. As long as the first prophecy of doom had not been fulfilled, I was uncertain whether the second one of a bright future would be fulfilled. But now that the first prophecy has been fulfilled, it is quite certain that the second will also be fulfilled in the future. They said, Akiva, you have comforted us. Akiva, you have comforted us. And this line concludes the tractate. Why are some possible reasons why the people wanted to keep Tish'a B'Av? First, the facts. The observance of Tish'a B'Av has increased steadily through the centuries, both in the number of Jews observing it and in the severity of the strictures. In a 2010 survey, 25% of Israelis reported they fast on Tish'a B'Av, and another 50% said they will not engage in recreational activities, although they do not fast. Evidently, people feel that some days of mourning are necessary to balance the joyful celebrations. When some early Reform Jews favored celebrating Tish'a B'Av as a day of rejoicing, because the temple destruction led to what they thought was a better Judaism, the majority shelved the idea and decide to simply ignore the day. Today, many Reformed congregations observe Tish'a B'Av as a sad day in some forms. Now the reasons. First, the destruction of the first temple proved that the temple could be destroyed, which is something many Jews at the time could not believe. They did not think God would allow his house to be destroyed. So one reason we mourn is to remind ourselves that no matter how good the current conditions are, calamities can befall us again. Second, by publicly remembering sad events, we remind Gentiles of what anti-Semitism has done to us Jews, but we also remind them that many of them helped us. For example, Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem, contains the names of more than 20,000 righteous Gentiles who saved Jews from the Nazis. Spielberg's genius in his movie Schindler's List was to publicize the Holocaust through a righteous Gentile, a man other Gentiles can identify with. In conclusion, we can say that the remembrance of bad events is necessary, but must be positive. It must not be done to make anybody feel guilty or to incite towards vengeance. Also, it must never be given as a reason to stay Jewish. The Jewish philosopher Emil Fackenheim may have famously said, "Do not give Hitler a posthumous victory," but I disagree. This is not a good reason to stay Jewish. The Book of Lamentations concludes with the line that closes the Torah service. Hashivenu Hashem Elecha v'nashuva, Hadesh Yamenu kekedem. Bring us back to your God, and we shall come back. Renew our days as of old. May this be the last Tish'a B'Av we spend in mourning.